After the college entrance exams, my son, Ethan, was accepted into a prestigious university. He immediately dashed off to his father's house to share the good news. Meanwhile, I was bedridden with a severe illness, with no one to care for me. On my deathbed, I called him and said, "I'm dying." "It's none of my business if you die," he replied coldly. "You made me suffer through 3 miserable years. You deserve to die." It wasn't until the day of my funeral that the community committee managed to contact Ethan. They told him, "Do you still want to go to college? If you don't come, I'll report your situation to your school." Only then, reluctantly, did he come to collect my ashes. A neighbor, infuriated by his attitude, pointed at him and scolded, "Your mother spent 3 years tirelessly working a stall to support your studies, and this is how you repay her? You're an ungrateful brat." Ethan, however, looked unconvinced. "My dad runs a big business. My stepmom's a corporate executive. And my grandma dotes on me. Why should I care about her? If she worked herself to death, that's on her." My soul twisted in anger, hovering above, as I shouted at him, "You heartless brat! Are you blind and ungrateful? If they truly loved you, would they have schemed to take custody of you from me?" But Ethan ignored me completely. He clutched the urn impatiently and walked away. Even when I was alive, he never listened to me. I watched helplessly as he exited the neighborhood, glanced around, and then tossed my urn into a trash can like it was a cursed, filthy object. Dusting off his hands, he sneered, "Finally, no one can control me anymore." Taking out his phone, he eagerly started gaming, exclaiming, "All right, let's team up." That moment, I felt a sorrow deeper than death itself. I couldn't even cry. What was I still hoping for? I watched as he played game after game, all the way until night fell. Then, for a moment, his face turned pale, and his brows furrowed. I thought he had finally realized that he no longer had a mother. But instead, he muttered irritably, "Why hasn't Grandma called yet? I'm starving." That was the final blow. My love as a mother drained away completely. I began to detach myself from the heartbreak. Deep down, I had known for a long time that Ethan resented me. When he was in 10th grade, he once begged me to buy an in-game item for $60. I refused. He flew into a rage, shoving and hitting me. "It's all your fault. If I lived with Dad, I could buy whatever I wanted. You're broke. So why even try to parent me?" He shoved me so hard that I hit the corner of the table and started bleeding. Without looking back, he stormed off. I spent the entire night searching for him, only for him to return the next day, smugly showing off the 10 in-game items his father had bought for him, along with new clothes and shoes. Earlier still, after failing to score high enough to get into a top high school, I suggested he repeat a year. "I'd rather die than repeat a grade. It's too humiliating," he yelled, storming off to his father. His dad, Ryan, agreed immediately and sent him to a poorly rated school instead. Feeling triumphant, Ethan came back to gloat, saying, "Only Dad knows how to solve my problems." What he never considered was that without me painstakingly supervising his studies for 3 years, he wouldn't have even come close to passing the university admissions threshold, let alone getting into a prestigious school. But no matter how much I gave, it could never compare to the occasional gifts and indulgences from his father's family. Ethan always believed I was the obstacle preventing him from living a wealthy and comfortable life. I felt a bitter, unworthy anger. My sacrifices had been discarded like trash. My short life had been wasted on a son who despised me. I thought I'd carry this resentment into my next life. But then, suddenly, I heard Ethan shouting furiously, "Don't drag me into this. You loser." I moved my stiff limbs, and sharp ceramic shards pierced my foot, staring at the acne-covered face of my teenage son. I froze. Slowly, I realized I had been reborn. This was the day of his high school entrance exams. The day I discovered Ryan had been cheating on me and resolved to divorce him. Fate had given me a second chance. Warmth spread through my hands, and my heart began pounding fiercely, struggling to suppress my emotions. I said calmly, "I don't have a job or an income. The court won't grant me custody of you." Ryan stared at me in shock. "Jessica, what do you mean by that? You found a job that pays $10,000 a month, didn't you?" Ethan shouted as he stormed up to me, his face twisted in defiance. I let out a cold laugh, remembering my past life. Back then, I'd overheard gossip among my coworkers about the company's HR manager, Donna, and her ruthless schemes. "Donna's so cunning," someone had said. "She helped the ex-wife find a job and then used it to secure custody for her husband. Two birds with one stone, kicking the troublesome ex out so she could marry him cleanly and quietly. Genius." Only then did I realize Donna, the company's HR manager, had set me up. She manipulated me into a job I wasn't qualified for, knowing I'd eventually be let go. For the sake of survival, I swallowed my pride and humiliation without confronting her. But just days later, Donna discarded me like trash, claiming my skills didn't match the position. People who didn't know the truth assumed I was some nepotism hire and cheered when I was fired. I was left speechless, my reputation ruined, and my spirit crushed. Now, as Ethan stood before me, clawing at the air like he wanted to attack me, I stayed calm. "No matter what tricks you pull, I won't live with you. Who pays a nanny $10,000 a month? That's a joke," he sneered. I smiled faintly, my heart chilled. Under the influence of my ex-mother-in-law and Ryan, my son had been conditioned from a young age to see me as the most useless and insignificant person in the family. A live-in nanny worth no more than $500 a month. I gently caught Ethan's arm and lightly pushed him away, laughing softly. "Your dad was joking. With his and Donna's financial stability, I trust you'll be fine living with them." Ethan froze for a moment, his expression confused. "Donna's a high-caliber person. She'll treat you like her own," I added with a calm tone. His face brightened. "Exactly. Donna and I get along great. She really understands me and even buys me in-game items. She says I'm talented and will be successful one day." I didn't bother arguing. Ryan, however, started to panic. He crossed his arms and paced anxiously. "Jessica, didn't you say that once Donna has her own child, it might complicate things between the siblings? What are you playing at now?" He was still clinging to his dream of getting rid of both Ethan and me so he could live a carefree life with Donna, and even wanted me to leave with nothing. I smiled sincerely and apologized. I was too narrow-minded before. "I'm sorry. I trust that you'll take good care of Ethan and that Donna will treat him fairly." Ryan was momentarily speechless. Ethan, on the other hand, wore a smug look, as if to say, "Finally, you understand your place." I picked up a pen, calmly added a few clauses to the divorce agreement, and handed it to Ryan. "I have evidence of your affair with Donna," I said coolly. "I don't want the house or the car. All I want is $120,000 in cash." I had no interest in dragging this out with them. I simply wanted to take what I could and move on. Besides, in a few years, the house's value would likely depreciate anyway. My decisiveness caught Ryan off guard. He tried to use Ethan to pressure me, but I cut him off with a single line. "Didn't you always claim to love Ethan the most? Are you really going to quibble over money in front of him?" This was the same tactic he used in my past life, betting that I would back down. But now, I wanted to see how he'd maintain his refined facade in front of Ethan. Surprisingly, Ethan chimed in nonchalantly. "Dad, just give it to her. You and Donna can always earn more. Just make sure the agreement includes a clause that she can't visit me. Think of it as paying for peace of mind." Ryan's face darkened, but then he forced a sinister smile. "Jessica, I know you hate me and want to spite me. Fine, I'll pay. Just don't go back on your word." I rolled my eyes and grabbed the documents, signing my name without hesitation. Ryan instinctively reached out to snatch the pen from me, but I sighed and looked at Ethan. "Ethan, it seems like your father doesn't value you as much as you thought." Ethan's face darkened. He stood up and demanded, "Dad, what does she mean by that? Hurry up and agree already." Ryan hesitated, torn between agreeing to my terms and clinging to the money. After all, the amount I was asking for represented our entire family's savings. But if he wanted to protect his precious Donna, he had no choice. Smiling coldly, I added with a deliberate tone, "Oh, by the way, that job I got, wasn't it arranged by someone named Donna? Funny how a housewife with no professional experience managed to secure a department manager position at the H Group's design department. Maybe I should have a chat with the boss about that." Ryan's face immediately turned pale. He quickly interrupted. All right. Fine. Just give me a few days to think. I laughed bitterly. What? You need Donna's approval even before she's officially moved in? If you wait a few days, my terms will change. Trapped by my words and with Ethan acting as an unhelpful witness, Ryan finally agreed to my conditions. I planned to drag him to the civil affairs office immediately to finalize the divorce. But just as I was about to insist, Donna called him, saying she was bleeding. Both father and son rushed out in a panic, their retreating figures looking almost pathetic. I wasn't in a hurry, though. Unlike my past life, I no longer had the vulnerability of being tied down by a son. If Donna's family thought they could manipulate me into taking Ethan again so they could live their perfect little life, they were dreaming. As soon as they left, I packed my belongings and moved out of the house, diving headfirst into my new life. The moment I was reborn, I had already mapped out a plan for my career. In my previous life, I entered the workforce in my 30s with no experience, competing against younger, more skilled workers. I ended up humiliated and dismissed. Afterward, I returned to street vending, but by then, even college graduates had started entering the trade. They weren't afraid of getting their hands dirty, and their trendy products, sweet talk, and early adoption of technology made them fierce competition. My only edge back then was my determination. I worked harder, started earlier, and stayed later than anyone else, shuttling between multiple stalls to sell out my inventory. Yet, after all that, I still came home to help Ethan with his studies, review his homework, and keep him company. My health deteriorated rapidly as a result. This time, I was more self-aware. I understood my strengths and how to use them to my advantage. Instead of competing blindly in saturated markets, I decided to focus on something I was naturally good at: household management. I was still relatively young and had a degree from a prestigious university. I knew how to handle children and household chores, and I wasn't afraid of hard work. What others might see as my weaknesses, I could turn into strengths in this field. I was confident I could carve out a successful career. In my previous life, while I worked at the company, I'd heard that the general manager, Helen Grant, was a single father with a daughter entering high school. He had openly asked employees to recommend a reliable, high-level housekeeper, someone who could manage their household, take care of daily needs, and tutor his daughter. The salary he offered was incredibly generous, $5,000 a month. I'd been tempted to apply after losing my job, but Ethan had thrown a tantrum, threatening to kill himself if I became a lowly nanny. On top of that, I hadn't touched a textbook in years and felt unqualified to tutor a high schooler. Now, none of those obstacles mattered. I confidently made a call to Helen Grant, introducing myself as someone referred by his company. He asked me to tell him more about myself. I started explaining. Back in my college entrance exams, I scored a 652. If I were to take the current exams again, I could guarantee a score no lower than that. As I spoke, a pang of bitterness crept into my heart. In those days, I wasn't just an excellent student. In college, I was also known for my beauty, a standout in my class. From school uniforms to a wedding dress, Ryan and I had been together for years. But after over a decade as a housewife, I had grown old, overweight, and lost all the brilliance I once had. After Ethan's college exams in my previous life, I quietly tested myself at home and astonishingly scored a 680. Every point was a reflection of my deep love for him, yet he discarded it like trash. In terms of teaching style, you're welcome to test me in person, I continued, my voice steady. Even a rebellious child like my son made it into a top university under my guidance. I can't imagine there's a student I couldn't teach. Helen then asked about my experience in household management. I forced a bitter smile. Does 16 years as a live-in nanny count? My specialties include one-handed cooking while holding a child, eating while holding a child, mopping floors while holding a child, and even preparing milk or changing diapers in my sleep. If needed, I can go without sleep for days to care for a sick or restless baby. Helen chuckled at my humor. Miss Jessica, you have quite the sense of humor. I can tell you're resilient and hardworking. I smiled back, my laughter tinged with tears. Oh, don't underestimate women forged in the fires of family life. Mr. Grant, Helen seemed to form a good initial impression of me and agreed to meet in person to discuss further. Despite a pleasant conversation, he ultimately expressed some reservations. I have a daughter entering high school. If you had certifications in nutrition, health management, and household services, it might strengthen your application. His words reignited my hope. Perhaps I could still get a second chance with him. As soon as we hung up, I signed up for classes in massage therapy, childcare, and medicinal cooking. I even enrolled in fitness and yoga programs. Private lessons cost $70 an hour. But I didn't hesitate. This time, I learned to invest in myself. This point in life, I understood that relying on myself was better than depending on anyone else. Besides, I was still a housewife, spending Ryan's money. If I didn't use it now, it would go to waste. It wasn't long before Ryan called, demanding I return home to finalize the divorce. The moment I arrived, I knew it would be a stormy day. My mother-in-law, usually busy with her square dance group, was at home for once. The moment she saw me, she started ranting. How could you just quit over such a trivial matter? What about me and Ethan? Don't we need to eat? Ethan, utterly indifferent, shrugged. If she doesn't want to cook, then don't. Grandma, we've been ordering takeout these past few days, and it's been great. Especially the fried chicken. My mother-in-law choked on her words, her face twisting with anger. I glanced at Ethan's acne-ridden face and felt no emotional stirrings whatsoever. The sink reeked from unwashed dishes, and the trash can was overflowing. Ignoring it all, I wiped the dust off a chair, sat down, and teased, "Mom, why not save your energy for training your new daughter-in-law? After over a decade of cooking for you, even on the day of my divorce, you still won't let me off the hook." She flung her cleaning cloth aside in frustration, her expression livid as she pointed at me. "Jessica, no wonder Ethan doesn't want to deal with you. You're nothing but negativity." I replied calmly, "I never intended to fight for custody. Ryan cheated, and you expect me to take Ethan with me and let them enjoy their carefree lives? I'm not that foolish." Her face turned green with rage, and I continued, "Keeping Ethan here to torment them is something I'm more than happy to do." You, she stammered, her fury rendering her speechless. Finally, she clutched her chest and lamented dramatically. "What a sin. Jessica, you're just taking your anger out on him," my mother-in-law said, her tone accusing. "Poor Ethan is innocent in all of this. Aren't you worried that one day he'll cut ties with you and refuse to take care of you in your old age?" I let out a cold laugh. He already threw my ashes into the trash in the last life. Cutting ties? Refusing to support me? That's nothing. My words were sharp, and my tone was icy as I continued. "Thanks to all of you for years of slandering me in front of him, degrading me, and painting me as the villain. You're all saints, and I'm the only bad guy. Well, congratulations. You've succeeded. I'm officially done. Consider Ethan a gift from me." I raised my voice and called toward the bedroom. "Ryan, didn't you call me back to finalize the divorce? What are you hiding for?" After a long pause, the tightly shut door finally opened. Ryan stepped out, supporting Donna, whose belly hadn't yet begun to show. My mother-in-law rushed over immediately, fretting, "Oh dear, be careful. We can't risk anything happening to my precious grandson." Ethan, visibly annoyed by her behavior, threw his phone onto the couch and snapped, "Grandma, you already have a grandson. And besides, still so tiny. How do you even know if it's a boy or a girl?" Donna smiled sweetly, her voice soft but pointed. "Ethan, I went to Hong Kong for a checkup. It's a boy." Ryan frowned and scolded. "Ethan, is that any way to talk to Donna? Stop barging around the house like that from now on." My mother-in-law chimed in quickly. "Ethan, you need to start caring for your little brother. Now, why don't you clean up this mess over here?" Ethan kicked the coffee table hard, spun on his heel, and stormed off. "Whoever made the mess can clean it up. I'm not doing it." He slammed the door to his room so hard it echoed through the house. Ryan's face turned red with anger, a hint of disappointment flashing in his eyes. My mother-in-law hurriedly turned to Donna to placate her. "He's just a child. Donna, I'll talk to him later. He just needs some time to adjust. You and Ryan have such a good relationship. He'll come around." Donna's eyes glistened with tears, and she nodded, sitting down with an aggrieved expression. But as Ethan turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of the malicious glint in his eyes as he looked at Donna's stomach. That venomous gaze spoke volumes. In my past life, I had taken Ethan with me before Donna even revealed the gender of her child, fearing how he'd react to his father and grandmother's blatant favoritism. Ethan, selfish and egotistical as he was, would never tolerate a younger sibling stealing the spotlight. Back then, I spared him the truth, unwilling to shatter his illusions. To him, I bore the burden of every unpleasant task at home, while his grandmother was a carefree, stylish woman who danced at community events, and his father was a cultured, good-tempered man who could provide anything he wanted. But this time, I was done playing the martyr. This was going to get ugly. We'd all get dirty together. Why should I bear all the suffering and humiliation alone? After watching the drama unfold, I turned to Ryan, my tone calm but deliberate. About the assets. Our agreement is already settled. Why not get it over with today? Let's go to the civil affairs office. Donna, seated beside him, interjected smoothly. Jessica, isn't it customary for divorcing couples to discuss custody before dividing assets? I raised an eyebrow, shifting my gaze between Ryan and Ethan. I thought we had already reached a consensus on that matter. What exactly is your concern? Donna. Donna forced a polite laugh, her words insincere. Of course, I'd love for Ethan to stay. Ryan and I both would. But as a woman, I admit I'd prefer to have my own child with us. Jessica, I just didn't expect you'd feel so comfortable leaving Ethan behind. I smiled faintly, unmoved by her veiled jab. Donna, you've raised a child before. You're not some inexperienced girl. I trust you to take good care of him. Donna's face froze for a moment, and she glanced at Ryan, whose slight shake of the head didn't escape my notice. That's when I realized they had brought her here today to test my resolve, to see if I genuinely didn't want custody. Just then, Ethan came out of his room to get a drink of water. He acted nonchalant, but I could tell he was listening closely to every word of our negotiation. Donna shot a glance at Ethan before turning her gaze to me, her expression carrying a hint of provocation. Jessica, we're both divorced women raising kids. Forgive me for being blunt, but children are usually better off with their mother. When I raised my daughter alone, it was hard, but I gritted my teeth and got through it. I'm not trying to brag. It's just that fathers tend to be inattentive. You've raised Ethan all these years. Are you really okay letting him go? Before I could reply, Ethan stormed over, pointing a finger at Donna. Why are you trying to kick me out? Didn't you say you liked me and wanted to be my mom? Donna's face froze, caught between frustration and embarrassment. She had intended to provoke conflict between Ethan and me to test my resolve, but she hadn't anticipated this tactic backfiring so spectacularly. Ethan's resentment toward me was already deep enough because I hadn't given him the wealthy, happy life he dreamed of with his father. So how could he tolerate Donna trying to replace him now? Sure enough, Ethan escalated. You brought your daughter in here to enjoy the good life, and now you want to kick me out to suffer? What's your deal? If you keep this up, I won't help you anymore. His defiant stance made it seem like he had caught Donna red-handed, holding her to account. I almost laughed out loud. My silly son. In the past, Donna had humored and spoiled him because she was a divorced woman with a child of her own and had to tread carefully. Now, with the child in her belly as her trump card, she had far more confidence. Donna struggled to suppress her discomfort, but she couldn't lash out at Ethan. Instead, she forced a smile and tried to placate him. Ethan, how could I ever want to kick you out? I like you too much for that. I'm only worried that your mom might not care for you as much in the future. Ethan cast me a dismissive glance. As long as you and Dad like me, that's enough. One less person doesn't matter. Donna turned to me with a look of triumph, but I was entirely unfazed. I shrugged and said, nice try, but reverse psychology doesn't work on me. Then, with a deliberately exaggerated gesture, I gave her a thumbs up. Donna, you've set a new standard for stepmoms. I'm impressed. Ryan finally lost his patience and stood up. Enough. Jessica, I never realized you were this cruel and sarcastic. Isn't this just about you wanting money instead of Ethan? Fine. I'll give you what you want. My mother-in-law joined in. jabbing her finger at me. Think carefully about this. If you walk out that door, you and Ethan won't have anything to do with each other anymore. Don't come crying to me later, because it won't work. Watching their anger and desperation, I felt a surge of satisfaction. Finally, it was their turn to feel powerless and consumed by negativity. Donna, however, couldn't let it go. How is it fair that a stay-at-home mom who hasn't earned a single cent gets so much? We'll have to raise our own child soon while she just walks away carefree. I smiled at Ryan without saying a word. His face turned dark as he pulled Donna aside to explain. Donna, brimming with indignation, marched right back to me. What? Are you going to sue me now? I'm a senior employee at the company. To most, you'll expose some negligence on my part. But I can sue you for falsifying your resume. I'll make sure every HR department in the industry knows about you. And you'll never get another job. Back when Donna's family arranged that job for me, they had planned it all from the start. I had never submitted any resume, knowing it was a setup. Donna's threat was nothing but an attempt to intimidate me. Slowly, I pulled out my phone. Well, I suppose I should give Helen Grant a call and explain how I got the job. Imagine, a mistress going so far as to help the ex-wife get hired. Surely, Mr. Grant would want to reward such a generous employee. Donna's lips twitched into a sneer, her attitude defiant. She was like a pig unbothered by boiling water, entirely shameless. But then I casually read aloud Helen Grant's direct phone number, 131-45-87. Her expression shifted immediately. Enough, she yelled, clearly rattled. I'm not going to argue with you anymore. I wasn't interested in arguing either. I endured everything until I finally had that red divorce certificate in my hands. I walked out of the room with a calm demeanor and a sharp smile, speaking each word deliberately. Donna, make sure you treasure your position as the HR director at H Group. Donna's lips trembled with rage as her eyes burned with hatred. But I simply smiled lightly and left with confidence. Ethan didn't even glance at me. Instead, the whole family sat together, their camaraderie on full display. Fine. If Donna was so skilled at winning people over, I was curious to see whether my disappointing son would measure up to their picture-perfect new family. After the divorce, I returned to my apartment, luxuriating in a hot bath and then rolling around on the soft bed. I felt an overwhelming urge to scream with delight. This is what life is supposed to feel like. From that point on, my days were packed with training sessions and fitness routines. I felt energized, mentally sharp, and alive. Even the sound of the wind seemed to carry a sweetness. With $80,000 in hand, I now had the resources to reinvent myself and pursue a career as a top-tier personal housekeeper. Who said being a domestic worker couldn't be a path to success? If others found it shameful, I would prove them wrong by excelling beyond their imagination. When I saw my young, tall, and muscular personal trainer for the first time, a flicker of long-dormant hormones stirred within me. As we measured my fitness stats, I felt deeply ashamed of the neglected state of my body. For so many years, I had never treated myself with care or respect. In just 1 week, I lost over 15 pounds, thanks to my initial weight. Having hit rock bottom, every little change felt monumental. Each step forward gave me hope. Like a barren old tree sprouting fresh leaves, I rediscovered the excitement I'd felt when I first got into college. The ambition and pride of setting out to conquer the world. I vowed to be in my best shape, both physically and professionally, for my first interview. In just 2 months, I not only earned certifications in nutrition and household management, but also achieved significant fitness results. I had to replace my workout clothes 4 times as I downsized through the sizes. My transformation was so noticeable that the gym's management approached me with an offer. They were expanding their operations and wanted to feature me in their advertising campaign. Ms. Jessica, your transformation perfectly matches the theme of our upcoming campaign, Rebirth from Despair. We'd love to use your photos and videos for promotional materials. We're even considering filming a few commercials with you. The manager explained enthusiastically. I smiled faintly. $5,000. I replied plainly. The manager blinked, surprised. Our company doesn't have the budget for that. How about I talk to your trainer and offer you 30 hours of private lessons instead? Then I'm afraid we won't have a deal. I said firmly. That's already a discounted rate. Seeing me ready to leave, The manager hurriedly blocked my path, pleading with a forced smile. Miss Jessica, let's talk this over. How about 50 hours? Consider it a gesture of goodwill toward Trainer Sue. I shook his hand off and looked him squarely in the eye. My voice turned icy. If that's the angle you're taking, then forget it. Do you think I've never seen a man before? I'm not interested. I knew full well that this gym was a gathering place for middle-class housewives seeking more than just workouts with their trainers. But I had no patience for such nonsense. Men, as a species, were something I decided to steer clear of for life. After all, I was a woman who had willingly given up custody of her own son. Realizing I wasn't playing games, the manager apologized profusely. Few days later, $5,000 appeared in my bank account. What I hadn't anticipated was how successful the campaign would be. The gym's membership numbers skyrocketed. And one day, while I was in the lounge, I unexpectedly ran into Helen Grant. He had become a client of the gym and was here for his workout. He glanced me over, his expression full of unhidden admiration. When I saw the ad, I thought it looked a lot like you. I didn't expect it actually was you, he said with a slight smile. I responded with confidence, giving him a brief update on the certifications I'd earned. He nodded approvingly. Good. The school year is starting soon. I'll arrange a time for you to come by for an in-home interview. By coincidence, Helen had also chosen Trainer Sue, which meant we began crossing paths more frequently. As Helen and I continued to cross paths, our interactions became increasingly professional and reserved. I was cautious not to overstep any boundaries, focusing instead on maintaining a solid impression. Helen Grant represented the perfect stepping stone for my future career in household management. Securing this high-paying job was my top priority. Through our conversations, I gradually learned about Helen's family situation. Both he and his ex-wife were highly ambitious professionals. After his ex-wife was sent to manage a branch office in Hong Kong, the two began to drift apart. Over time, her career flourished, and she decided to settle permanently in Hong Kong. Helen, however, was unwilling to give up his business here. They struggled to reconcile their differences for years, ultimately divorcing earlier this year, with their child staying under Helen's care. One day, during a candid discussion, Helen remarked, "If either of us had been more like you, Miss Jessica, someone willing to prioritize the family, perhaps things wouldn't have come to this." I smiled bitterly. If my ex-husband hadn't crossed certain lines, I would have been more than willing to endure the hardships and keep our family together. Helen chuckled softly. It seems that all the good men and women end up in someone else's home. The conversation was beginning to tread into ambiguous territory. To steer it back, I responded earnestly. Your divorce wasn't about right or wrong, Helen. It was about irreconcilable differences. As for me, if I had been more independent and assertive, perhaps I wouldn't have been taken advantage of the way I was. In the end, though, it's better to look forward to the future. That day, we talked at length, and I noticed that Helen's gaze toward me grew increasingly approving and even admiring. Later, Trainer Sue privately asked me, "Helen seems to be paying a lot of attention to you. Is he interested in pursuing something more with you?" I laughed at the suggestion. Someone like Helen Grant, a seasoned, results-driven elite, has countless options. If he's paying attention to me, it's not because of romantic interest. He's evaluating me, trying to determine whether I have the ambition to rise higher in his world. I understood that successful businessmen like Helen held those closest to them to extremely high standards. I didn't have the energy or the aspirations to meet such expectations. Not after everything I'd been through. I died once already, and in this second chance at life, I had no illusions about men. This time, I just wanted to live independently and enjoy my freedom. Just as my life was steadily improving, trouble inevitably found its way to me. One day, after finishing a workout with Trainer Sue, I was ambushed by Ryan's mother, Mrs. Chun Farong, who grabbed me by the hair right in the middle of a busy shopping district. It was rush hour, and the streets were teeming with people. She shouted, "Jessica, no wonder you abandoned your son. You're using Ryan's money to support your boy toy. You shameless tramp." I yanked myself free and retorted sharply, "Mrs. Chun, your son cheated on me, and we're divorced now. How is this any of your business?" The crowd began murmuring, pointing fingers at us, which only made Mrs. Chun more furious. Her eyes darted around before she turned to Ethan, who had been standing nearby. She gestured wildly, calling out, "Ethan, tell her we came to see her. What kind of mother abandons her child like this? Even if you're divorced, you still have a responsibility to care for your son." I shot back coldly, "How have I neglected him? I send child support payments to you every month on time." Mrs. Chun clutched her chest dramatically, wailing like a woman possessed. "That little money barely covers anything. You should come to our house every week to spend time with him. If you have time to chase after men, why don't you care about your son?" Her words earned the sympathy of onlookers, and she used the opportunity to play up her performance. With spittle flying, she painted me as a selfish, heartless woman who had abandoned her family for a life of debauchery. Trainer Sue, unable to tolerate her slander any longer, stepped forward and grabbed her arm. "Apologize to her, or I'll sue you for defamation," he said firmly. I stepped aside, looking at Ethan, who had kept his head lowered the entire time. I spoke with deliberate clarity. "Mrs. Chun, it's been a few days, and you've turned into a real shrew. Don't forget, you pride yourself on being the most modern and carefree grandma, even the lead dancer in your performance group. Don't do something so disgraceful." Ethan, being the selfish and image-conscious person he was, couldn't possibly align himself with his grandmother's public theatrics. His face turned dark as he grabbed Mrs. Chen's arm, muttering, "Grandma, why bother pandering to her? She doesn't care about me now, but one day she'll get old too." Then, as if unable to resist, he turned and challenged me. "Tisich, what are you so proud of? When I grow up, I won't acknowledge you. When you're old and bedridden, I'll pull out your oxygen tube." The crowd gasped in unison, and the atmosphere shifted immediately. Mrs. Chun was so furious her lips twitched, and she nearly choked on her breath. I suppressed my laughter. My silly son had no idea how frail his grandmother looked after only a few days apart. If she hadn't been truly desperate, why else would she have come here, shamelessly blocking me to demand I return and take care of him? As I watched Ethan stomp away with determined steps, I fixed my gaze on his back for a long moment. "Son, keep being exactly as you are." Afterward, I apologized to Trainer Sue, who stared at me with an expression of incredulity. Pointing to the departing figure, he asked, "That's your son?" I nodded calmly. "Yes, my biological son." He looked utterly baffled. Speechless for a moment, I gave him a faint smile, bid him farewell, and left. It's nothing. Having lived through this once already, I deeply understood that while family love could be selfless and unconditional, the world was not short on heartless mothers or ungrateful sons. In my past life, if I hadn't witnessed the end, I never would have believed that the son I had painstakingly raised hated me so deeply. Each time Ethan broke my heart back then, I would comfort myself by saying, "He's just young and doesn't understand yet. If I teach him more, he'll change." But no matter how much I sacrificed, no matter how much I fed him my efforts in bite-sized lessons, he never learned to see others' contributions or show gratitude. He inherited the cold, selfish nature of Ryan's family and took it further, becoming so brazen he didn't even bother hiding it. I thought that incident might bring some peace, but instead, more trouble followed. First, Helen subtly asked if I had fully resolved issues with my previous marriage and offered his help if needed. My heart sank. He must have heard some rumors. Then, the next day, Ryan showed up at the training center where I was taking classes. When he saw me, he scanned me up and down, as if trying to confirm something. "Jessica, it really is you," he muttered, his eyes narrowing. Once he was sure, his gaze lingered inappropriately, filled with a disgusting mix of surprise and satisfaction. I brushed non-existent dust off my shoulder, smirking coldly. Only then did he snap out of it, his tone turning snide. "No wonder you don't want custody of Ethan. Divorce suits you. I bet you've been hooking up with someone else for a while now. Have you seen a psychiatrist for that paranoia of yours?" I scoffed, unimpressed. He continued bitterly, "You look decent now that you've slimmed down. Managed to catch Helen Grant's attention. Huh, but don't get your hopes up. He'd never be interested in an old woman like you. There are plenty of younger women in his company who'd love to be with him. At that moment, I was certain it was Ryan who had been badmouthing me to Helen. I dragged him into a corner, lowering my voice but sharpening my tone. What exactly are you trying to do, Ryan? He smirked smugly. What do you think? Ruin your good times. Of course. You threw Ethan at me so you could live it up. Not a chance. I took a deep breath, unwilling to waste my energy on this man. Fine. Say what you came to say. What is it you and your mother want from me? Ryan's expression shifted to one of triumph. Come home with me. There's something we need to discuss. You think divorce is a game? Ryan sneered. Come back home with me. I laughed out of sheer frustration. Home? What home? We're divorced. Ryan. He was unfazed, clearly prepared. Taking out his phone, he showed me a video. On the screen, a shrill voice screamed, "Get out! You bastard! If you die out there, don't come back." I grabbed the phone from him, my hands trembling. The video showed the living room of Ryan's house in utter disarray. A child wailed heartbreakingly on the couch, while a disheveled, overweight woman yanked a man's hair, shouting and pushing him toward the door. She looked completely unhinged. The man in the video pleaded meekly, "Honey, I was wrong. Let me see the child. Please. He's crying so much. Get out. Don't come back. My son and I don't need you." The woman yelled. I couldn't watch any longer. My body trembled, my hands and feet cold. When did you install surveillance cameras in the house? I shouted. Ryan replied without hesitation. Jessica, I've got plenty of videos of you losing it, breaking down, acting ugly. What do you think would happen if I sent these to Helen Grant? Do you think he'd still look at you the same way? I closed my eyes tightly, trying to suppress the storm of emotions. Fine, I said coldly. Let's see just how low you're willing to sink. I got into Ryan's car without another word, staring silently out the window. I thought I had moved on from my past life, that I could leave everything behind. But seeing those moments of blood, sweat, and tears captured so cruelly on video brought it all back, leaving me shaking. Anyone who saw the footage would think, what a barbaric, slovenly, heartless woman, cold toward her child and unreasonable to her husband. But they wouldn't know the truth. That video was taken when Ethan was 5 and battling pneumonia. My mother-in-law had helped for a day before finding an excuse to leave for her dance group. Ryan was busy with work, ignoring my frantic calls. For 4 days and nights, I cared for Ethan on my own, enduring his endless coughing fits, begging doctors and nurses for help, and being scolded when I couldn't follow their instructions perfectly. I couldn't sleep for fear that he might stop breathing in the middle of the night. On the 4th day, Ryan finally returned. My pent-up exhaustion and despair exploded, resulting in the chaotic scene captured on video. And that bastard had installed surveillance cameras in the house, not to help, but to spy on me, silently collecting footage of my worst moments, saving it for years to use against me. This man's betrayal went far beyond mere infidelity. I shook uncontrollably with rage, my body convulsing. Ryan, oblivious to my seething anger, suddenly reached out and placed his hand on my thigh. His voice oozed with fake sincerity. Honey, come back. I didn't realize until you were gone that this family can't function without you. Suppressing my nausea, I asked icily. And Donna? He squeezed my thigh tightly and smirked. She's not an issue. The baby's still small. And she's older. So her pregnancy is unstable. We haven't even registered our marriage yet. I couldn't hold back any longer. I slapped him hard across the face. Scum, I spat. When we arrived at Ryan's house, I was hit by the overwhelming stench of unwashed trash and stale air. Ethan was sitting on the couch, playing video games with a girl about his age. The girl giggled as she held Ethan's smelly foot. Ethan, you're amazing. You have to play with me all the time. Okay. Of course. Ethan replied smugly. I'm climbing the ranks. Pretty impressive. Right. Mrs. Chan greeted me loudly, clearly intending for her words to sting. Jessica, look how well Ethan and little Exine get along. They're just like real siblings. Donna, lounging on the couch and munching on sunflower seeds, chimed in impatiently. Mom, this place is such a mess. I can't even step anywhere without tripping. Mrs. Chun, exhausted, let out a sigh and tossed the cleaning rag aside. Jessica, from now on, you need to come to the house once a week to clean and prepare meals for the week. That way, you won't need to pay child support for Ethan. Donna chimed in with a smug smile. I heard you're trying to apply to be Helen Grant's housekeeper. He's been looking for someone for over 6 months, but hasn't found anyone who meets his standards. You can't just sit around waiting for a miracle. Ethan put down his phone, his face full of disdain. You're so pathetic. I thought you'd change after the divorce. But you're still just going to be someone else's maid. Ryan, clearly enjoying himself, added mockingly, think of it as doing something for your son. We're not asking much. Just once a week. And then it clicked. This entire family wanted to keep exploiting me for free labor. Mrs. Chun, trying to mask her discomfort, muttered, coming 4 times a month for $1,000 isn't too bad for you. Exactly, I said with feigned politeness. Compared to before, when I was on call 24/7, taking care of the child, cooking, and running the household, it's certainly an upgrade. I didn't argue further, just asked with mock confusion, but why not stick with the maid you're paying $3,000 a month? Mrs. Chun averted her eyes, but Ethan blurted out, we've already switched through 7 or 8 maids. None of them are any good. They refuse to do this or that. I don't understand what makes a maid so arrogant. Suppressing my irritation, I turned to Ethan. Ethan, you want your mom to come back as your maid, serving your dad and stepmom. Have you ever considered how your mom feels about this? He shrugged dismissively. You're going to be a maid anyway, so why not just do it at home? At least no one will laugh at you for it. I tossed my hair back, taking a moment to steady myself. My cold, selfish son never failed to disappoint me. Unfortunately, you can't afford me now, I said with a sigh. If you're willing to pay $5,000 a month, I might reconsider. Donna let out a mocking laugh. Know your place, she sneered. Ethan's eyes widened. You're worth that much? Ryan, his tone threatening, added, even if you do get the job, you won't last. Mark my words. We'll see, I replied curtly, unwilling to waste more time on them. I turned to leave. This place isn't just filthy, so are the people. Watch out. A disaster is brewing in this family, and I won't be cleaning it up. Having learned that Ryan had been keeping surveillance videos to use against me, I decided it was time to take the initiative. I planned to meet with Helen Grant, but only after the formal interview. I wanted him to see my abilities first, ensuring he would evaluate the situation objectively. The day of the interview arrived. There were 10 candidates, including young, beautiful women and even multilingual international students. I silently congratulated myself for choosing this career path so decisively. The interview went as smoothly as I had anticipated. The younger, prettier candidates lacked my efficiency and resilience. They hesitated when facing messier, tougher tasks. The older candidates didn't have my education or skills. Most importantly, I had no personal baggage or distractions, which meant I could dedicate myself entirely to the role. My adaptability and focus were unmatched. Helen's daughter, Sweetie, was thrilled with my trial tutoring session, saying, Dad, she's way better than my school teachers. She makes everything so easy to understand and fun. We should hire her. She's amazing at every subject. Helen didn't make an immediate decision, simply telling us to wait for his response. The next day, I ran into him at the gym and invited him out for dinner after his workout. During the meal, I deliberately ordered a bottle of red wine. With liquid courage in hand, I took a deep breath and asked, Did you happen to see any videos of me? He didn't avoid the question. Donna did send me some clips, but I'd like to hear your side of the story. I downed a glass of wine, gathering my composure. Then, in a calm and objective tone, I recounted the blood, sweat, and tears I had endured during my years in Ryan's household. The manipulative mother-in-law who delighted in belittling me. The selfish ex-husband who shirked responsibility while playing the perfect man. And their relentless attempts to alienate Ethan from me with petty bribes. My ex-husband, a man who prided himself on belittling his wife, was the epitome of toxic masculinity, selfish and arrogant. My son, raised in his shadow, inherited the same disdain for me. His mother, over more than a decade of marriage. I lived like a caged beast, battered and scarred, capable only of powerless roars, breakdowns, and outbursts of despair. I wiped my tears and looked at Helen Grant with a bitter smile. It's pathetic and laughable, but I was truly a mess back then. There's no escaping that fact. Helen listened patiently, his demeanor calm and composed. He handed me his handkerchief and replaced my wine with tea. I recognized this as the mark of a gentleman, a reflection of the upbringing he'd clearly received. I was grateful he had given me the space to explain myself. Years of pent-up pain and exhaustion finally broke free, and I cried for a full 10 minutes before I could regain composure. I couldn't tell if Helen fully accepted or understood my explanation, but at this point, I no longer cared. Being forced into this position, I decided I wouldn't let Donna and Ryan get away with their schemes. After gathering my thoughts, I spoke firmly. Mr. Grant, I know being a mistress isn't a qualification for employment, but Donna has repeatedly abused her position for personal gain. She not only manipulated me in the past but is now infringing on my privacy and trying to force me back into servitude for their family. You don't have to hire me, but I urge you to seriously reconsider Donna's character. I took a deep breath and, beyond the incriminating video, presented him with a collection of Donna and Ryan's conversations. Among them were records of Donna bribing H Group's procurement manager to favor Ryan's company. This led to the company purchasing substandard products at inflated prices. Here are the source suppliers' price lists. I explained. Ryan's company is merely a third-tier distributor, and due to Donna's interference, H Group has unknowingly incurred at least $300,000 in additional costs over the past year. Helen glanced at the documents, set them down gently, and tapped his fingers on the table. His sharp gaze locked onto me. Jessica, he asked suddenly, was your initial self-recommendation just a means to set this up? I stared at him, stunned, and it took me a moment to realize what he was implying. Helen thought I had approached him with a calculated plan to exact revenge on my ex-husband and Donna. My hands clenched into fists as indignation surged through me. Mr. Grant, I began, steadying my voice. I understand why you might think that, but let me clarify. First, I fully respect and value my chosen profession. I pursued this career path after careful consideration and have worked hard to excel in it. Second, my grievances with Ryan and Donna ended the moment our divorce was finalized. If they hadn't pushed me this far, you wouldn't be hearing about this now. Helen studied me intently for a long moment before breaking the tension with a teasing tone. Even if I'm losing hundreds of thousands a year, you're saying it's none of your concern. I hesitated but chose honesty. That's correct. I'm not a self-proclaimed hero of justice. I'm simply a woman who knows how to protect her own rights. If Ryan and Donna hadn't provoked me, I wouldn't go out of my way to make enemies. Cutting off someone's income is as serious as taking a life. After all, and let's not forget, H Group's losses stem from internal mismanagement, including poor personnel choices. So, Mr. Grant, you really don't need to thank me. Helen's composed demeanor cracked into a rare smile. Relax. This matter has nothing to do with you personally. Besides, as a businessman, I wouldn't let something so trivial cloud my judgment. I returned his smile. I'm just glad you don't misunderstand me. Helen concluded the conversation gracefully. I've understood everything clearly. Thank you for your honesty, Jessica. Despite his words, I couldn't shake the lingering unease. No employer would willingly hire a live-in housekeeper prone to emotional breakdowns and volatility. Still, I refused to be discouraged. I had already prepared myself for the worst outcome. That night, I meticulously updated my resume and sent it to several well-known domestic management agencies. I wouldn't pin all my hopes on one opportunity. Helen's response to Donna's actions was swift and decisive. She was terminated immediately and received a legal notice demanding compensation for the losses caused by her abuse of power during her tenure. That was when I realized the extent of Donna's misuse of her role as HR manager. She had orchestrated more than just bribery to benefit Ryan. The compensation claims alone would be enough to ruin her financially, potentially even leading to jail time. As for Ryan, he was promptly disqualified as a supplier to H Group, although most of the blame fell on Donna, which spared Ryan's business from collapsing entirely. His losses were still significant. Donna slunk back to Ryan's home to focus on her pregnancy. Meanwhile, I received an unexpected offer letter from Helen Grant. To my surprise, he not only hired me but also added a $1,000 monthly raise to apologize for his earlier misunderstanding. My new salary was $6,000 a month. Oddly enough, I hesitated. Could I truly thrive under such a shrewd employer? But Helen, ever the cunning fox, pitched his offer with ease. Jessica, I might not be offering the highest salary in the market, but I guarantee my household relationships will be the simplest you'll find. This, I couldn't refuse. For someone new to the field, working for a single father like Helen was an ideal opportunity. I didn't disappoint him. My work ethic, skills, and proactive attitude gave him peace of mind. Our collaboration was seamless, and I genuinely enjoyed my role. The next time I encountered Ryan's family was outside Helen's gated community. The security guard informed me that a noisy group of people was demanding to see me. I felt relieved knowing I'd chosen Helen as my employer. His work schedule and Sweetie's school hours left my afternoons flexible, giving me the perfect opportunity to deal with the Ryans. Before heading out, I deliberately dressed in designer clothes and shoes, carrying an LV bag. Money was no longer an issue for me, thanks to my role in managing the Grant household. I had joined the Homeowners Association and built connections with other residents and their household staff. I even brokered a few deals, using my divorce settlement to invest in a small domestic services company. Many residents in the villa complex were now my clients. Helen was fully aware of my entrepreneurial efforts and supported me, as long as my work with his family wasn't affected. After Sweetie's academic performance improved significantly during my 3-month probation period, Helen voluntarily extended my contract to 10 years, confident that I wouldn't leave. This mutual trust made me work even harder. When I arrived at the gate, the security guard captain quickly approached me. "Miss Jessica, someone claiming to be your son is causing a commotion, insisting on seeing you." I apologized and walked toward the gathered group. Ryan greeted me warmly, stepping forward with enthusiasm. "Honey," he paused, scanning me, and awkwardly corrected himself. "Jessica." I chuckled coldly, still half asleep. "Ryan," feigning innocence. He smiled weakly, then nudged Ethan forward. "Go on, Ethan. Call her Mom." Ethan hesitated before shuffling toward me, disbelief in his eyes. "Are you really my mom?" I studied him silently. He had gained weight. His face bloated and oily, with dark circles under his eyes. His clothes were wrinkled, as if they hadn't been washed in days. He looked utterly disheveled and lethargic. When I didn't respond, Ethan frowned and muttered, "I heard you're working as a maid for some rich guy?" "Actually, I'm a professional house manager." I corrected him. "You're old enough now to broaden your perspective. Keep up with the times." Donna, resting a hand on her visibly pregnant belly, sneered bitterly. "Big sister, I heard you're making $6,000 a month now. That's more than some senior executives earn." Mrs. Chun let out a loud gasp. "6,000 a month?" she exclaimed, her voice rising. At that moment, the security guard captain turned to Donna and quipped, "You look at least 10 years older than Miss Jessica. Calling her big sister seems a bit generous, doesn't it?" I couldn't help but laugh. Donna touched her face, her expression shifting between anger and embarrassment. Without her executive title or any savings, her arrogance had long since lost its footing. Mrs. Chin's eyes widened as she stormed toward me, exclaiming, "You're making $6,000 a month, but only paying $1,000 in child support? That's unacceptable. At least give us $5,000 and keep just $1,000 for yourself. That's more than enough for a woman." Her audacious entitlement made me laugh outright. It was the first time I truly understood how ignorant and greedy my mother-in-law was at her core. "Do you think that just because I was once your daughter-in-law and you held power over me for a while, you can control my entire life?" I asked coldly. She faltered, momentarily lost for words. Then, with a quick glance at Ethan, she grabbed him by the arm and said, "And what about Ethan? Even if you're divorced, you're still his mother. If you're not giving your money to him, who else should get it?" I turned my gaze to Ethan. Though he resented me, he was old enough to recognize right from wrong. Avoiding my eyes, he shrank behind Mrs. Chun, mumbling, Give the money to Grandma to keep, and I'll still acknowledge you. No need. I replied icily. I'm not your mother anymore. Ethan froze, his face reddening with anger and embarrassment. What's so great about you? Anyway, you're just a maid making $6,000 a month. Do you think people are stupid? You must be someone's mistress. I don't want your dirty money. This child was beyond saving. Ryan awkwardly scratched his nose, trying to diffuse the tension. Jessica, don't take it to heart. Ethan's just trying to say you're looking great now. I had no idea you were this capable. Ignoring his feigned flattery, I turned to Mrs. Chun and said firmly, what I earn has nothing to do with any of you. The divorce agreement explicitly states that I'm not allowed to visit Ethan, so don't try to use him to threaten me. And as for you, Ryan, don't show your face in front of me again. Didn't the slap in the car last time hurt enough? Donna's face darkened as she grabbed Ryan's ear and demanded, what does she mean by that? Are you regretting things now that she's rich and beautiful? Are you planning to dump me after ruining my career? No way. Ryan frantically tried to calm her down, stammering out excuses. Meanwhile, Mrs. Chun, realizing I wasn't going to negotiate, pushed Ethan toward me and declared, fine. If you won't pay, then take Ethan with you. Don't think you can live a good life on your own while we suffer. Their shamelessness almost amused me. I turned to Ethan and asked, so this is the plan you all came up with together? Ethan's face twisted as his eyes darted around. Suddenly, he grabbed my hand and began to cry. Mom, Dad and Grandma don't care about me at all. They only like the baby Donna's carrying. Once he's born, I'll have no place in this family. I stared at him silently, watching his performance. He wiped his tears dramatically and pointed at Donna. Mom, she's awful. She secretly badmouths me behind Grandma and Dad's back. Says I'm useless, and only cares about her daughter. She even sneaks her daughter extra allowance while I get nothing. Life at home is terrible. Ethan, you've changed, I said, smiling faintly. You've learned how to act now. But honestly, I preferred the old you, the one with a backbone. Don't make me lose respect for you. Exposed. His face turned red, and he reluctantly let go of my hand, still muttering, Mom, I don't understand what you're saying. I couldn't be bothered to respond. Instead, I turned to the security guard captain and said, call the police. They're here to extort me. I warned coldly, don't ever use Ethan to threaten me again. If you keep treating the divorce agreement as a joke, I'll make sure Ryan's little company won't survive. Sweat immediately broke out on Ryan's forehead. Was Donna's situation your doing? He stammered. I smirked faintly. Ryan, with all your flaws, do you think I need to do anything underhanded to ruin you? Ryan gritted his teeth and pointed a trembling finger at me. Jessica, you've got some nerve. Let's see how long you can stay smug. Seeing that the security captain had already called the police, Ryan quickly pulled his family away. Ethan, frustrated by his failure and humiliated by me, suddenly rushed forward and shoved me hard. You're a vicious woman. Go to hell. I'm done with you. You're nothing but a dirty maid, not even fit to carry my dad's shoes. So what if you have some filthy money now? Disgusting. Caught off guard, I stumbled in my high heels, twisting my ankle sharply. Pain shot through my leg, but I gritted my teeth and stood firm. As long as you stay away from me, you'll never see me again, I said coldly. The family stormed off in anger. Although I had long since decided to give up on Ethan, today solidified just how deeply he had been poisoned by his upbringing. His contempt for me had been etched into his bones from a young age, thanks to the influence of Ryan and Mrs. Chun. His earlier tears and pleas were nothing but an attempt to manipulate me for his own gain. The moment he realized he'd been exposed, his true feelings came out in full force. His insults were genuine. If anything, I had to admit that Ryan and Mrs. Chun had succeeded in raising Ethan exactly as they wanted. Selfish, cold, and devoid of gratitude. Still, Ethan's accusations against Donna likely weren't lies. I could only wait for the day when their complex second marriage family dynamic completely imploded. When Helen Grant returned and heard about the incident, he pondered aloud. Do you want me to deal with Ryan? I could make a call, and he wouldn't last long as a distributor. People like him don't survive in this industry if I say the word. I shook my head. Forget it. He's still Ethan's father. Besides, if I completely ruin him, I'll end up stuck with Ethan. And I'm not that foolish. Helen nodded understandingly and asked about my injury. How's your leg? Should I call the family doctor? It's nothing, I replied quickly. Ethan's just a kid. He doesn't have that much strength. Doesn't affect me. I was more worried you'd blame me for dragging trouble to your doorstep. Sweetie, sitting nearby, suddenly chimed in. Dad, you like Aunt Jessica, don't you? I think Aunt Jessica is way better than those flashy women outside. Helen laughed, lightly tapping Sweetie on the head. Don't be cheeky, he said. But he didn't deny it. Flustered, I quickly changed the subject. The idea of being with Helen? No way. He was too shrewd, too calculated. A relationship with him would be exhausting. After this incident, the Ryans kept quiet for a while. During the summer break, I accompanied Sweetie on a trip abroad. When we returned, shocking news greeted me. Donna had suffered a miscarriage. Ethan had dropped out of school and ended up in juvenile detention. And Ryan's business had collapsed under Donna's revenge. The entire family was now living off their dwindling savings, their household in complete chaos. Out of options, Donna eventually sought Helen's help to return to her job at the company. That's when I learned the full story. As Donna's pregnancy progressed, her attention shifted away from Ethan, favoring her own daughter. She often clashed with Ethan, especially over games and petty arguments. With no one to mediate, the house became a war zone. Mrs. Chun and Ryan's solution was to leave the chaos behind and escape for peace. Without supervision, Donna's bias toward her daughter escalated, further fueling Ethan's resentment. The breaking point came when financial stress hit the household. Donna refused Ethan's requests for takeout and in-game purchases. Furious, he decided to retaliate. While Donna was at a prenatal checkup, Ethan bullied her daughter, escalating to violence. When Donna returned and found out, she confronted Ethan, leading to a physical fight. Seething with hatred for the unborn child who had stolen his place in the family, Ethan deliberately kicked Donna in the stomach, causing her to miscarry. By the time Mrs. Chen and Ryan rushed back to clean up the mess, it was too late. Donna not only lost her baby, but also faced her daughter crying and demanding to leave the toxic household. She was furious, insisting on reporting Ethan to the police. With their youngest son gone, Ryan naturally took Ethan's side, threatening Donna with divorce if she dared to press charges. The once loving couple who had schemed relentlessly to be together had now torn each other apart, becoming bitter enemies. Donna, determined to make Ethan pay, succeeded in having him sent to juvenile detention. Gritting her teeth, she declared, "He ruined my daughter's life, so I'll make sure he carries a criminal record for the rest of his." Helen Grant, still considering Donna's previous contributions as a senior employee and sympathizing with her daughter's plight, offered her a regular staff position elsewhere. Yet Donna turned on me with a venomous glare. "It's all your fault, Jessica. If you'd taken Ethan with you back then, none of this would have happened. My daughter wouldn't have been hurt. You're a heartless mother. How dare you live so beautifully now when your son is a criminal? This is your doing." Her hysterical accusations startled me, but I remained composed. Donna had no right to blame me for this. The law would hold Ethan accountable for his actions. But as for her, I looked at her with disdain and said sharply, "Back then, you were so desperate to marry Ryan that you encouraged your daughter to cozy up to his family, especially Ethan. You put a teenage boy and girl under the same roof during such a vulnerable time in their lives. As a mother, did you ever think about protecting your daughter? I pity her." Donna staggered back, momentarily speechless. I took a step closer, my tone unwavering. "What? Did you think I should have let you manipulate me, clearing every obstacle for your perfect little life? Think again." Her face turned a deep shade of red, a mix of humiliation and fury, as though caught red-handed. Helen, who had been observing silently, finally sighed, disappointment flickering in his eyes. "Donna, all of this is your own doing. Even now, you still think it's someone else's fault. I have to say, your character leaves much to be desired." He was ready to withdraw his job offer on the spot, but I intervened. "Let it go," I said quietly. "Consider it atonement for my son's sins." I didn't pity Donna. No matter how miserable her situation was, But divorced, unemployed, and disgraced. I couldn't help but wonder, what would become of her daughter? Donna, ungrateful as ever, shot me a hateful glare before leaving in humiliation. Later, I sat in my room for a long time, deep in thought, until Helen knocked gently and entered. "Are you worried about your son?" he asked with genuine concern. I gave him a faint, absent-minded smile and shook my head. "No, not at all. In fact, I think this outcome is just fine." Helen raised an eyebrow, his curiosity evident, but I didn't care what he thought of me. Speaking plainly, I added, "If I had fought for custody back then, I'd probably be in a worse position than Donna today. At least she still has her life." Helen studied me for a moment before sitting down beside me. After a brief silence, he asked unexpectedly, "Jessica, what do you think of Sweetie's suggestion?" It took me only a second to grasp his meaning, and I responded playfully, "Mr. Grant, are you trying to avoid paying $6,000 a month for a house manager?" Helen chuckled, shaking his head in exasperation. Of course, a man as wealthy as him wouldn't care about such a sum. Based on what he'd shared about his reasons for divorcing his ex-wife, I suspected he was looking for a partner who prioritized family above all else. But that wasn't me. I had my own career, and working as his house manager was merely the first step in my professional plans. "Helen," I said with a knowing smile, "for two seasoned foxes like us, taking that step forward would be no small feat, don't you think?" He sighed softly, a hint of regret in his voice. "Yes, it would be quite difficult." I responded with a silent nod. Over time, I had noticed Helen Grant's growing fondness for me, his kindness, patience, and subtle attempts to test the waters of our relationship. But as he said, taking our relationship a step further would be incredibly challenging. Having just freed myself from a marriage that reduced me to little more than a housekeeper, I couldn't step back into another relationship under the same guise. If it didn't work out, I thought, I could always walk away, pay the hefty penalty for breaking my contract, and move on. With that mindset, I pulled myself together and, as a matter of duty and principle, went to the juvenile detention center to visit Ethan. He had lost a lot of weight, his youthful arrogance replaced by a defeated, hollow demeanor. His arms and face bore faint bruises, a testament to the harsh lessons he had been learning. When he saw me, he instinctively moved closer, his eyes glistening with a mix of tears and joy. But just as his hand reached out to touch me, he hesitated and pulled it back. Unsure of himself, I stood silently, observing him. Despite feeling a trace of pity, I found his current appearance far less repugnant than the entitled, greasy-faced boy he used to be. "Mom," he whispered softly, his voice tinged with anxiety and awkwardness, like a stray puppy desperate for attention yet afraid of rejection. "I was wrong. Please scold me," he muttered, bowing his head deeply, his hands twisting nervously. For a moment, a faint ripple stirred in my heart, but I pushed it aside and said coldly, "I won't scold you, nor will I care for you. You're not worth it." Tears immediately streamed down his face. "Mom, I truly know I was wrong. I've realized now that only you ever loved me. It was Grandma and Dad. They kept saying terrible things about you, poisoning me against you. I never wanted to reject you. Mom," I scoffed, laughing quietly. He looked at me, confused by my reaction. "Ethan, oh Ethan," I said with a bitter smile. "You really are the kind of person who pledges loyalty to whoever provides for you. Your dad may be a scumbag, but he at least stood up to Donna for your sake. And yet here you are, shifting blame the moment it's convenient." I shook my head in disappointment. I had to admit that my son was inherently ungrateful, a trait ingrained in his very nature. "Focus on your rehabilitation," I said flatly, turning and walking away without looking back. This ending felt like closure, a way to finally lay to rest the bitterness and regret that had consumed me in my previous life. The chains that had bound me for so long had been broken. The Jessica of today no longer feared the future.